applaus for me.
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot. Indeed, so maybe if just two questions before I get started. Who has a business bank account here? Okay, and who's happy with his business bank account? Okay, so it looks like the trouble is similar here as we've seen in France since we got started. So Qonto is indeed a small business banking solution. We're revolutionizing the business banking. We started with France, and now we're expanding to other European countries, and we'll be launching in Germany very, very soon. I'll give you more details. Maybe just a very quick slide on like numbers and where we stand. So we launched the product 1.5 years ago. We created the company 2.5 years ago. Today we have 130 employees actually on the team, slightly more than on the slide. We've raised about 32 million euros, and we've got, most important, we've got more than 25,000 small business clients in France, and again opening soon in other countries. And our clients, our users are super happy with the product, and that's how we've been scaling quite fast. Of course, I'll give you more details as we move on. I'll skip these slides and try to get to the more kind of feedback on what we've been doing and how we scale it. But basically, we're doing everything right in terms of business banking compared to what traditional banks do. So we're nice products, great UX, great UI. It's transparent, it's efficient, it's built for teams. So basically, it's like the best of your Gmail account and the Amazon basically customer support with banking. So of course, it's quite different from what traditional banks do. And of course, it's integrated with all the business tools and the SaaS that small companies use. So for accounting, for payroll, for invoicing, and so on. I don't know if you can read there, but basically some really good comments from some of our clients that are very happy with the product. And the great thing is that they're showing their enthusiasm online or social networks, blogs, and so on. So this is really how we got the acquisition to go really fast when we started. So quick word on the team. Actually, my co-founder Steve is here in the room as well. So we started, the two of us, 2.5 years ago. That's how we split the work. So Steve is taking care of tech, product, design, brand, and operations. And I'm taking care of business, what we call banking, so which is basically compliance and regulation, acquisition, like sales and marketing, PR, and sales I mentioned. So at the very beginning, of course, we're doing kind of everything, the two of us, and now we've scaled very much the team. This is a bit of a overview of how we've grown in terms of raising funds, a number of clients, a number of people in the team, and I'll use that basically as a kind of a guideline to discuss about how we've been scaling. So basically, 2016 was really getting started. 2017 was becoming real, and 2018 was scaling. So I'll give you a couple of examples of how we did it, and kind of takeaways of what worked well for us. So this was the very initial team. We had a team drink in one of our team's members' apartments. So the team was pretty small, as you can see. It was 2.5 years ago. Of course, the very first months were about getting the first few employees. None of Steve or myself were tech guys, so we wouldn't be able to basically code the first few lines ourselves. So the very first thing we did was trying to find a CTO. So of course, I know it's one of the toughest things you have to do when you're starting your business and you're a business person. So there's this company called Choose Your Boss in France, which is a kind of a dating platform for tech people and business people. So we basically had a little offer there saying, yeah, we're trying to build a business bank. We're looking for a tech person to join us. And by chance, we had Gabriel, so our VP engineering, who applied, and basically after a few conversations and meetings and cafes, we ended up basically hiring him, and it's been a great hiring, because he's been helping us to basically start and now scale the whole platform. Then in parallel, of course, of like trying to know what we're supposed to build, was doing lots of customer interviews. So this is some examples of like one of the 150, I think we did about 150 interviews of small business owners around us. So when I say around us, it's either people we knew or just people we met randomly, like either Uber drivers for like very small companies, or we would go to like see any company that was at WeWork, for instance, that had like 3 or 4 people were asking them about their business bank, whether they were happy, where we could improve, and so on. So we basically interviewed all these people and kind of digested all of that to boil down what was our MVP in the end. So that was the very first landing page. So it's, as you can see, it says Easy Business Banking, the banking alternative for entrepreneurs and startups, soon available. So it's in French, but that's what it says. And so people could basically sign up to the beta. We had about 1,500, a bit less, 1,200 signups, at least people who were interested. We actually took about 10% of that as real beta users. So we had 150 beta users. Special thanks to the family, actually, because the family, so in Paris, was one of these 150 first beta users. So thanks again, Irina, for having us tonight. But thanks again also to the whole family team for being one of our first users and helping us debug, or at least test, let's say, the product. That was very helpful. And then so that was really what we did for the first year or so. So if I have 5 takeaways for that, first would be focus on what the MVP should be. So of course it's easy to get lots of requests on, I'd like to do this, that, and that, and kind of people have their wish list on what their dream would be in terms of banking in our case. But I think it's easy to kind of get lost into lots of details and lots of things that would be very complex. The important thing is really to see what would be the MVP, so the minimum you could do to make those clients actually use the product. Second, which is linked, is only listen to like real potential users. So especially when you start, lots of people are telling you, like friends or family, or like, it's nice, but I mean, I don't think that's a real business. I mean, like everyone told us it was a really bad idea and it would never work, basically. So I mean, even like potential users who in the end signed up and were happy, but especially if you listen to people who are not likely to be your clients, it's really not interesting at all. So you should kind of avoid listening and even like talking to these people in a way. Third point is agree on clear milestones with your co-founders, and like agree to, ask yourself some questions every 2 months or every 3 months or whatever, but not in between those milestones. So like if you say, okay, let's build an MVP, then you decide on what the MVP is, and for the next month or 2 months or 3 months, you just focus on building that MVP, because otherwise you spend your day, like wondering whether you're going in the right direction, and you had this meeting where someone told you, it's a bad idea, so you're a bit depressed and you don't move forward. So it's really important to like say, okay, let's focus. We do like this for 2 months, and in 2 months we'll take a break and we'll see where we stand and whether it's worth going further or adjusting what we've been doing. The fourth key takeaway is, I think it's quite obvious, but at the beginning, you really need people that are kind of Swiss knives. So in our case, our VP engineering was both good at, like front end, back end, DevOps. I mean, he could do like a bit of everything. So of course, it's always useful. First, because he had to do a bit of everything himself, but also because he had to hire the first few tech guys, and he could understand and test them better than otherwise. And the last point is about raising funds. I think raising funds, so in our case, our seed round, was really helpful in like both hiring people, obviously, because it's a signal and because you have cash to spend on their salaries, but also like for ourselves, because the day you've actually raised cash, you're like, okay, now it's really real and we have cash and let's do it, and let's not like ask too many questions, ask ourselves too many questions, basically. So that was really like the first few months, like 6 months in 2016 of 6-8 months of getting started. Then the team grew a bit, as you can see. It was in the courtyard in our offices, and it was so this 2017. It really became real. So like everything became real. So we had a real team, as you can see here. We had real offices, because before that we were kind of subletting some space here and there. We were not really in our own office. It was always a mess. Everything was kind of bit shaky, but that was the real thing, and of course getting also the real product to work. So there was the launch party actually at the family in Paris that we had in summer 2017 to launch the service. So here, that's not an ad for Uber, but that's actually because our first transaction that we ever made with a Qonto card was on Uber, where we wanted to test. So we kind of used a lot Uber to test our cards, because you can book an Uber and then cancel the booking, and you can still see all the all the transactions. So that's what we used to test the service. And of course, the first time when you have the card, your company, so in our case Qonto, issued, and so you test it on Uber, and wow, the booking or the trip is accepted, and you're like so happy. I mean, it's just a Uber booking, but you're still very happy. And so that was really getting real. Like we had real cards with our logo on it, real clients. So the real client is soon after, but it was really getting real. So we're not anymore in the your friends and even yourself, because that's more important, yourself, like wondering, is it going to work really at some point? I mean, you're hoping and you're planning that it will work, but that when it actually works in front of you, it's much better. So this was the case with this Uber transaction, and basically, so for this so the second year, which was the real first year of, let's say, activity and having a real team. A few takeaways. So iterate fast on product and make sure everyone understand who the clients are. So I think similar to what I said just earlier, when you have new people joining on the team, it's really important that they understand who the clients are, especially in our case, because we're targeting businesses. It's important that they understand, what businesses are our clients, small businesses, large businesses, what types of, what sector, and so on. It's also important that they take some time to spend, with the customer support team and understand what the pains are, what the feedback on the product is. That's quite obvious, but that's really important to do. And actually, today, the session that our new joiners like the most during their onboarding week is actually the time they spend with the customer support team. And I think we've designed it super well, so that they answer live basically with some customer support people, and so they see exactly the types of questions we get asked, and it's very it's real time and it's very concrete, so that they can see that very well. Of course, we used like the first few clients, hundreds of clients that we got to get more. So using referrals. Using, of course, word of mouth, having some testimonials on the website, publishing. We did that quite a bit, actually, having like some sponsored ads, like some sponsored articles on Facebook, using our clients' examples. So we would say, okay, whatever, the family is using Qonto and it's making their lives easier. But we would speak basically about the family, so the family would be happy about us. Promoting their work through our ad, and so it's kind of helping our clients and ourselves indirectly. So this was quite impactful. The third point is Yeah, and it's again, it's easier with hindsight, but of course we took some. I mean, we made some decisions in terms of language, like country, organization. So we, from day one, we had the product in both in English and French. So now it's much easier to localize it in German, Italian, and Spanish, because these are the language we're adding soon. Same for multi users. From day one, you could have several users on a Qonto account, because we've been targeting both freelancers, but also like teams, you know, like from whatever 2 to 500 people. So it's much easier when it's integrated from day one. Some players have a product where you have only one user per account, and then it's of course much more complicated if you want to have multi-user layer on top of that. Of course, hiring, like point number 4, hiring is always a key thing. I mean, it's always been, and it will probably always be. The point here is more like start delegating. Of course, when you have 15, 20 people on a team, you can't do you can't do it. Shouldn't do everything yourself, and so it's hard at the beginning because you've been used to doing everything yourself and knowing everything yourself and controlling everything yourself, because at the very beginning you were only like a handful of people, but it's important to be able to do that as you grow, and still a point on raising capital, at least on that year. So we raised earlier than expected our Series A. But of course, it's always great to raise when you don't need, or when you don't feel like you have to. It's always helping to kind of have your like more ambitious goals and perspective, and be able to hire faster and better people, which is again the key to scaling fast. So that's our current office, actually, with the team when we moved in June 2018, so a couple of months ago. I think we're like probably 60 on the picture. We're now like double that, more or less. In 2018, we got our banking, like the payment institution license. So the ACPR is a French regulator, the equivalent of BaFin in France. So of course this was a cool milestone, also celebrated with champagne, and so this was also a step to becoming, let's say, even more serious in the industry. So having kind of the like the official license, which would enable us to do some, more basically product, more have a better offer for our clients, but also like the flip side is more responsibility and accountability in terms of KYC, anti-money anti-money laundering policy and so on. But this was of course a key milestone that took us 8-9 months to get, but of course that was important. And in 2018, so as the team grew quite a lot, so 2019 we started with 50 people, we ended with 125. This was really the time when we realized, we knew it, but we realized it even more, that we had to have a clear vision, a clear ambition, clear values for existing employees, because they could feel a bit lost with like the company that had been growing so fast, but also, and most importantly, for like new joiners who are wondering what's Qonto, what are you doing, what's the plan for the next few years, what are your values, so that this is what we came up with actually together with the team. So we had that. We had a workshop during an offsite we did a couple of months ago in Barcelona, and so it was mostly like fun and party, but we just had like a 2 or 3 hour session on this. It was not too bad, and so basically the team was iterating on according to you, what should be our 4, 3, 5 values, corporate values, and we had like mixed groups of kind of old team members and new joiners. So everyone was talking about that, and that's what the team came up with. So creating the bank all businesses love. I think that's quite self-explanatory. And the 4 values were ambition, teamwork, mastery, and integrity. And these are the values for the team. So not for the products, not the value proposition of the product for our clients, but really for internal values and kind of filter when we hire new joiners, so that they kind of tick these 4 values. And so the last year was basically about spending more time with the team. Again, the team grew a lot, so we started having some a few people leave the team or leave the company because they felt like it was getting too big for them, and they were not comfortable in such a big team. So we realized we should spend more time with everyone, basically. Which is tough because the more people you have, the tougher it gets to speak and spend time with everyone. But it was definitely something that we did more. Constantly improving communication. So again, because the team was getting bigger, communicating on numbers, on how the company is doing or what the vision is, and so on, became more and more important. So now we have a monthly all hand. With lots of information on how the business is doing. We're being very transparent on numbers, revenues, number of clients, and so on potential challenges we're facing, and so I think it's been very very appreciated by the team. And the tools to remain efficient. So of course, we were mentioning tools earlier. It's true that now we're lucky to be able to have the right tools, so we're not taking all tools available, but of course having the right tools for the right team is a great incentive to be motivated to do their job. So for the marketing team, they have the right thing. It was a big investment. We took Salesforce for the sales team and so on. So it's of course. Like sometimes it's a bit of a problem to kind of get this done, but it's also like the sign of a scaling company that needs to be organized with the right tools for the right ambition. So that's what we did. The third point is quite important actually. Be ready to say no more often. So with the scaling, basically we've got lots of inbound requests for people who are trying to sell us stuff, investors who are trying to invest. Obviously that's their job, and people who are applying for positions that either don't exist or applying with a CV that doesn't match at all. And so you get lots of requests like that, and it's easy to get trapped into lots of events, lots of requests, lots of being nice with people because you remember, 2 years ago I was struggling and they might have been nice at that point, so should I spend 2 hours with them, blah blah blah. And it's actually it's tough, at least for me sometimes it's tough, but you have to say no to lots of people. So that's really something that's important. The fourth point, is to be able to, again, it echoes the point of delegating more that we had on the slide for the previous year. It's really important to hire people that will actually be able to do the job better than you, and not only because you don't have time or because you don't want to allocate time to that. So it's really important when you interview someone when you reach that kind of growth phase to make sure that this person is going to bring you not only some time or some capacity, but also some quality and knowledge and experience that you don't have yourself. And the fifth point, so dream big and step back. We discuss to become a better leader. I think it's quite obvious, but neither Steve nor I have ever, like managed 125 or 130 people. So it's important to always kind of, try and get some good ideas, good, knowledge from different people, different sources on how to be a good founder, how to be a good leader, how to be a good manager, because it's constantly evolving and getting larger and more complicated in a way. So of course, in our sales, we have to also work a lot to make sure we can drive the business and help everyone to stay to stay happy, to stay energized, and to grow together, basically. And so today, so that was our picture of our offsite in Barcelona on a large sailing boat. And so the plan for this year is to get our own core banking system, so basically our banking infrastructure in-house. Today, until now, we've been working with a partner, basically, and to expand to Germany, Spain, and Italy. Here we are. Sorry, and last point. So that's my email in case you have questions, in case you want to join us. I know we have lots of great positions you can see on our website, and happy to give you more details if you want. And the code just below is a code like we'll be launching in Germany soon, as I said. So happy to have lots of you, trying the product. The first, I think we said the first 100 beta users will be using the product for free for a year. And so happy to get some of you, to be on that list if you're interested.
Thanks a lot for the talk.
Thank you again for a very interesting talk. What would you say are your USPs, and how did you leverage them to drive growth?
So USPs are threefold, at least when I look at the French market, which is the one we've been addressing so far, is really much better product. So like it's faster, it's well organized, it's more efficient when you use your bank account, basically. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's the transparent pricing. So it's not necessarily much cheaper than a traditional bank, but it's much more transparent, so you know what you pay. If you're happy, you stay with us. If you're not happy, you cancel. It doesn't cost you to, anything to open or to close your bank account. So like really transparent pricing and fair pricing, I would say. And the third point is amazing customer support. So basically, whenever you have a question, we get back to you within 15 minutes, of course, during business hours. But it's like super reactive, either by phone, email, social networks, and so it's a totally different world if you compare it to traditional banks. On the product, just to give you an example, so on the UX part, one thing that was really frustrating with our previous company, so basically Steve and I had founded the first company together a couple of years ago, and the reason why we started Qonto 2.5 years ago is because we were so frustrated with our previous company, with our traditional bank account, that when our previous company got acquired, we said, okay, that pain was so huge that let's try and solve it, basically. So, but to get back to your question, for UX, the example I wanted to give was the online history with traditional banks is very, like almost always limited to 30 days, sometimes to 90 days. So it's like your Gmail account was limited to 90 days. It's really unbelievable today, and so we've just made a nice history that's unlimited. You have all your transactions. You can filter by date, by amount, by user, by currency, whatever. You have a search bar exactly like on Gmail. On that history, you can attach transaction receipts. If you actually, it was so we took a cab. The time you pay in the cab, you have a notification. You can swipe the notification. You take a picture of the receipts. It automatically extracts the VAT amount, like with OCR, with an OCR layer, basically. So everything is faster, easier, fun in a way sometimes. Even if it's banking. No, but like so the product is much better, much faster, and much easier to use. And then for the pricing and the customer support, that's probably even easier to get.
I have two questions regarding raising capital. What was the strategy in the early stages, and how you got so much funds initially? And then secondly, in terms of marketing and PR, what was the strategy for you to promote Qontos again in the early stages when no one knew about it, and how you got these early adopters to jump into the platform and sign up?
So first question about raising capital. So Steve and I had already started a business. We had raised capital, and we raised capital. I'm not sure whether, so Rafi is here. Actually, Rafi is one of our investors. So from Alvin, he's here actually by chance, but maybe if you want to talk to him, he's a great guy. So Rafi had invested in our previous company. It was called Smoke.io, and so we're in touch, and it was easier because we knew him and the fund, and so basically they invested in our second company, but it was not. I mean, and raise your hand if I'm wrong, but it was not easy either. Like, it's a new company, it's a new industry, so it's not like just because they knew us they invested. So we still had to show that there was a market, that we had a plan for the product, that there was most probably a pain that it would be solving. So I think it's always the same thing. You just have to show that the market is there, that there is a real pain that you're trying to solve, that you're able to, that you're likely to solve that pain within the time frame that you've indicated. And in our case, because fintech is usually quite cash intensive, or at least you need a certain amount of money to be serious in that industry. We knew that we had to raise capital quite early, and we wouldn't be able to have an MVP to raise capital. I mean, we definitely we raised our first our seed round on the idea and on some slides and some business plan, but we had no product at all basically. So it's really about just explaining with whatever surveys or statistics or market data or personal experience that you can share what pain you're trying to solve and how you're going to solve it basically. And then of course the moment you get your first beta users, you get 1,200 signups, 200 people that are onboarded, etc., etc. Then it gets easier, but of course the numbers get bigger. So it's kind of you always have to kind of show that the first few things that are working are indicating that the growth and that the ambition is validated basically. Two things, if I'm trying to remember. The first thing is one of our investors, together with Alvin, we raised with Valar Ventures, who also invested in a couple of other quite successful fintech. So TransferWise is one, and 26 is another one that's quite famous, especially here. So and because the Valar was co-founded by Peter Thiel, we used kind of that name for PR. So we said, okay, we're the first French company to raise with Valar that's been co-founded by Peter Thiel. And so that got us quite a few press articles. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is not really about PR per se, but it's really like the first users and the first comments we got on Facebook, for instance, were very positive. And like for bank account, people would write very long reviews with 5 stars and so on, and they were not like our friends or our cousins. They were like just regular, real clients. And so that really helped us a lot with basically word of mouth and getting the first bloggers to actually write an article on among the top 5 tools you need to know when you're a business owner. Qonto is one of them, or those kind of articles basically.
How difficult was it for you to convince people to come along with you at the beginning? Let's say you are a small team. I mean, I'm sure you have excellent personal skills, but you are only 4 or 5 people. And how do you convince, for instance, data scientists or your, the IT guys to join you when you are so small and you only have an idea? Or Was it difficult for you, or was it easy? How was that?
I think that was difficult, but to be honest, I think that's still difficult today. Meaning that, when we started, we had like, little money, little time, little track record, at least in this business. So we had, okay ambitions in terms of, who would be hiring, because we knew we wouldn't be able to pay or to hire like some, superstar from whatever company. And now, because we have more traction, more, more money, more employees, more everything, we're aiming for more or better. I don't want to be rude to, existing employees, but you see what I mean. And so it's still tough to get the best talent we want, basically. Like the first dozen or so employees, or maybe more actually, the first 15 employees all got equity in the business. With hindsight, I'm not sure it's exactly the reason why they joined, but let's say that they got equity. I think it's of course it's a lot about the team, much more than the product or the project itself, especially in fintech or in banking. I think people are interested in banking or fintech, but they're not always, let's say, passionate, or they were not born for fintech or for banking. If you're like in the sports business or in some industries where it's more about being a passion, it's probably more like that. But in our case, it's really okay. There is a real pain. We are very rational about it. Where there is a huge market, huge pain. We've experienced that pain as business owners, as entrepreneurs ourselves. We've already started a business together. We've sold it. It worked okay. It was not the best exit or the best history, startup history, but like it was okay. And now we want to do something really huge. And we have everything to do that. We've raised some cash. We know the market, etc., and join us to do that together. So it's really about showing them your passion, the fact that you want to have them with you and not like below you in terms of management style, and then it's similar to selling your business to a client. It's really about pitching and explaining, and you can also actually learn from those who are not joining you. So like if you're trying to get someone and in the end they tell you, okay, I'm going to do something else, it's great to ask them feedback on why they didn't join and what you could have done differently so that they would have joined. You can also learn from that if that happens.
Thank you. What do you think the main difference is between the user needs for France and Germany for your product?
You tell me. We haven't launched yet, so I think it's and we don't know very precisely yet. I think in overall, Germans seems to be closer to cash and like using cash to pay. But it's not like a business thing. It's more like everyone in Germany is more likely to use cash. In France, it's probably more like people are more likely to use credit cards, but also or cards, but also checks. Actually, one of the features that was very much requested by our clients was being able to cash in a check. So we did that. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be something really important for Germany. I think being able to cash in some check is probably going to be more important. So I think these are the kind of differences. Let's say cultural differences with like relationship to cash and money, and then you have some let's say technical or technical differences, like the accounting partners that we could have in Germany might be different from the ones we would have in France, because like historically they've been different, or because when you want to, if you want to launch a GmbH in Germany, the process is probably a bit different from if you want to launch a similar company in France, because you have to go to the notary or whatever. So these things are, but I think our product is well designed business bank account for small to medium enterprise. We're in the Eurozone, we're in the SIPA region, so it's very likely that 90% of the products that has been very attractive and successful in France is going to be successful here. And of course, the remaining 10% will be important to be as successful. But I think that the base is very much common.
Que la famille.